In this lecture, we are going to discuss bethanechol, or you can say Urecholine, which is its brand name. We will cover the different actions of the bethanechol. So let's get started. First of all, we will look. Bethanechol is a cholinergic agonist. It means that its action will be similar to the acetylcholine neurotransmitter, that is important factors of the parasympathetic nervous systems, but it can also be involved in the other parts of the nervous system. So first of all, we will look, or we will revise the previous knowledge. So nervous system is divided into two: central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. Peripheral nervous system is further divided into the somatic nervous system, that is the voluntary nature, and the autonomic nervous system, that is involuntary, which is not in our control. Autonomic nervous system is further divided into the sympathetic nervous system, which activates in fight and flight response, and the parasympathetic nervous system that regulates the sympathetic nervous system. So in this sympathetic nervous system, or you can say in the autonomic nervous system, two main neurons, preganglionic and the postganglionic. So in the sympathetic nervous system, preganglionic releases the acetylcholine, which bind to the nicotinic receptors present on the adrenal gland, and after that adrenal gland produce the norepinephrine and the epinephrine that bind to the adrenergic receptors on the effector organs. This is the first case. Second case, preganglionic neuron releases the acetylcholine, which bind to the nicotinic receptor, which is present on the postganglionic neuron, and the postganglionic neuron further releases the norepinephrine, which bind to the adrenergic receptor on the different effector organs. So you just have to remember acetylcholine or the related cholinergic agonist can bind to basically two receptors, nicotinic receptors and the muscarinic receptor. But the norepinephrine and epinephrine can bind to the adrenergic receptor. So these are the two cases in the sympathetic nervous system, and in the parasympathetic nervous system, you will see the preganglionic neuron releases the acetylcholine, which bind to the nicotinic receptors on the postganglionic neuron, and ultimately postganglionic neuron releases the acetylcholine, further acetylcholine, which bind to the muscarinic receptor on the effector organs. So this is our main concern, because bethanechol binds mostly to the muscarinic receptor. It has less affinity for the nicotinic receptor. Another important thing that is involved in the somatic nervous system, sweat gland is innervated by this sympathetic nervous system. So in sweat gland, that combination will be similar to the parasympathetic nervous system. This pathway will be similar to the sympathetic nervous system in case of sweat gland innervation. Next is the somatic nervous system. You will see the release of the acetylcholine, and that bind to the nicotinic receptor on the effector organs. So our main concern is the muscarinic receptor, which is present on the different organs. So bethanechol, which is also known as urecholine, binds to mainly on the muscarinic receptor, which are present on the different organs. So it will produces its effect on the different organs. It's depend upon the according to the organ. So first is the our GIT tract. GIT tract has lot of muscarinic receptor. So bethanechol makes its effect on the GIT tract. So what effect will you see in the? You will see the increase in the motility and the tone of the GIT tract. So these are the important thing, and so that's why adverse effects will be similar to that in case of, you can see the diarrhea and the nausea due to the increased motility of our GIT tract. Next most important actions of the urecholine is the on the urinary bladder. So urinary bladder has detrusor muscles, and it has trigone region in the urinary bladder. Here is the trigone region, and along with that you will see the presence of the sphincters. First thing, by taking the urecholine, which acts similar to the acetylcholine, so urecholine increases the contraction of the detrusor muscles. It means that detrusor muscles starts contracting, but trigon regions and the sphincters will start relaxing, and ultimately due to these factors, urine which is present in the urinary bladder starts uh, moving outside the body. So this is the important thing. It means that it enhances the tone of the muscles of the urinary bladder, that is detrusor muscles. So it is important for the atopic bladder conditions that happens postpartum and the postoperative, and the it can also seen in the non-obstructive urinary retention. So that is important in these conditions. Okay, that can also be used in the neurogenic atopic conditions, in which there is reduce in the tone of the detrusor muscles. By taking the urecholine, the tone starts increasing, and the urine, one person can easily urinate because it enhances the tone of the muscles of the bladder by taking the urecholine. So that is the important thing. Contractions of the detrusor muscles and the relaxation of the trigon and the sphincter muscles in the urinary bladder. Next is the adverse effects. So muscarinic receptors are also present on the heart. Heart having muscarinic receptor. So urecholine can reduce the heart rate, and ultimately you will see the bradycardia. Bradycardia, just similar to the action of the acetylcholine, that is reduce in the heart rate. Next, GIT tract, you will see the nausea. It increases the motility, and ultimately you will see the nausea and the diarrhea. Diarrhea seen in due to the high motility of the GIT tract. Lungs also having muscarinic receptor, and it causes the bronchoconstriction. These are the adverse effects of the urecholine. So we can reverse the effects of the urecholine by taking the atropine sulfate. That is again the antidote for the urecholine. That will be the atropine sulfate. And last, sweat gland. As we have already discussed, the innervation of the sweat gland similar to the acetylcholine. It has preganglionic neuron, postganglionic neuron, and at the postganglionic neuron you will see the release of the acetylcholine and binding to the muscarinic receptor. But one take the urecholine outside, and ultimately that will bind to the muscarinic receptor and activate the sweat gland. You will see the increase in the sweating, and that condition is called the diaphoresis. Diaphoresis, increased sweating condition. So these are the different adverse effects related to the by taking to the urecholine. So this is all about the bethanechol, which is also known as the urecholine. If you still have any question, you may ask without any hesitation. Thank you so much.